Ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for our daily press review. We have with us Mr. Mohamed Sheta, a media expert. Good morning, sir, and Happy New Year to you.
A very beautiful good morning to you, and Happy New Year to you, your team, and of course to all the viewers of Nile TV.
Thank you very much, sir. And we'll start off with El Shuru newspaper, where we read President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Tuesday with engineer Tariq Qabil, Minister of Trade and Industry. Presidency spokesman Ambassador Ala Youssef said that during the meeting, the Minister of Trade and Industry displayed the ministry's efforts in the field of developing the industrial zones. Qabil said they will announce a new industrial area in El Minya as well as other development projects in the industrial zone in Wesna and Menofeya. The minister also briefed the president on the latest development of Rubaiki industrial zone, which will be specialized in leather industry. How do you see the ministry's effort in developing the industrial zones, and how do you see the new projects taking place in Egypt?
I think it's a very important meeting that and a very important step that President el-Sisi met with the Minister Tariq Qabil, the Minister of Trade and Industry, because actually this sector is the most important sector for Egypt during the next 5 years. And I haven't met Minister Tariq Qabil personally before, but I know from other colleagues who work with him during his time in the private sector that he's a very, very professional person, that he's very competent, and he knows, he tries to know every detail around himself and about the business he's doing. So
we'll be expecting a positive impact on the industrial area in Egypt. I think we need this very much.
That's for sure. I just heard his speech a couple of weeks ago during an automotive conference here in Cairo, and I was very impressed, and I liked very much what he said, because he said that we will not any longer protect for example, at that time, the automotive sector, and that we will, during the next couple of years, we will develop the sector. So this means that he has a vision. It's not only about protecting the made in Egypt products, because actually protection is only useful for a couple of years. After that, you have to compete with the international markets, because we're facing a free market in 2019, especially with all the European products coming to Egypt without any customs. So if we are not prepared for 2019, then we will fail miserably in competing with the international products. So I think he's got a vision, and
I think they need to have a plan also. They need to have a plan to reopen all the industries that have closed during the last 5 years, in order to open new industries and to introduce new industries into Egypt.
Actually, I think the most important thing is to attract foreign investors, because most of the investors who closed down their factories, they closed them down because actually their profit margin was not as high as they were used to before. If you look at
although we have a very high profit margin in Egypt,
it's not a high one; it's a huge one. Actually, it's an unacceptable profit margin.
Compared even to European countries.
Compared to anywhere in the world. Compared to anywhere in the world. I was just in a shopping mall with a friend last week, and we saw, for example, a bag which costs in Dubai a certain brand, which costs in Dubai, for example, 150 dirhams, which is approximately around 350 or 400 pounds. They sell it here for 2,500 pounds. So, and every other product is so overpriced in Egypt, and the Egyptian consumer and the Egyptian citizen, he pays twice and three times the price.
But maybe this is because we have high customs on
no. Actually, no. It's this is the lack of awareness, because actually the media, especially the state-owned media, is not doing its work correctly. They should protect the interests of the Egyptian consumer and the Egyptian taxpayer, who's actually financing the salaries of some of those journalists working, for example, in the state-owned newspaper, and they're not really actually protecting his interests. And about this, for example, if you pay customs, let's say for cars, for example, they're only 40%, but at the same time the car is almost twice the price than it's sold in its country of origin. So actually the profit margin makes up to 60 or even 100% of the price. So I think the more competition we have is definitely better for the Egyptian consumer. I think Minister Tariq Qabil is doing the correct thing and on the right path to do that.
Right, and still with Akhbar al-Yom newspaper, and we read Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan agreed on Tuesday on assigning French consultancy firm to conduct technical studies of the Renaissance Dam. And sir, how do you see the flow of negotiations regarding the Renaissance Dam? We've seen several rounds of talks, but we haven't seen any concrete solution or middle ground reached between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan on this issue.
Of course, it was expected that the negotiations with the Ethiopian government will be very, very tough. They have already done lots of constructions on the site itself, and what I don't understand is why we're getting two French consultancy companies. Actually, I think it would make more sense to have one French and any other country, you know, like Germany, Italy, France, whatever, you know, the United States, United Kingdom. But having two companies from one country, I don't know. I didn't really understand it. But of course. Our foreign minister has been very tough in the negotiations so far, and hopefully, I think that the Ethiopian government has noticed that Egypt will not be really quiet on this subject, and that they will not just let that pass.
What do you think is the way out of this crisis? I mean, do you think we should internationalize the issue?
I think sooner or later, if we don't reach a comprehensive agreement with the Ethiopian side, then definitely it would be an international issue. And I think the chances of Egypt are quite high in getting the recognition and the improvement from several key countries like the European Union, for example, or the United States. So let's wait and see how it will develop. It's a very tough case, and it's a very significant.
It's a national security issue, and it has to do with Egyptians' life or death. I mean,
definitely.
It's a life or death.
Definitely,
issue.
and of course we should not show to the Ethiopian side that it's really a matter of life or death for us, you know, because actually this might weaken our position with them, because they know like they're on the they have more power to control the issue or the safety or the security in Egypt. So I think Egypt is very diplomatic in this issue, and
so far.
In the social media and in many newspapers, you see, of course, that the last solution, you know, still is like a possible military action. I don't think that we will need that, but I'm sure that the Ethiopian government knows that Egypt is not gonna stay quiet and surrender to this issue easily.
Right. Then moving on to Egypt Independent, where we read a procedural session of Egypt's 568-seat House of Representatives will most likely be held on January 10, according to Legal Affairs Minister Magdi Al-Agati. The minister told Parliament reporters on Tuesday that the Assembly will convene after the end of Christmas and Coptic vacations. Elections for the chamber ended on December 2nd. Right. Sir, how do you see, what are your expectations actually for the upcoming Parliament? This very historical Parliament.
Well, actually, I always try to stay positive as much as I can. The constellation of this Parliament is quite unique. It has never been like this before in the Egyptian history. So we have lots of unique characters, like we have TV presenters, we have show personalities from the show business. We have lots of businessmen. Anyway, we have a very unique constellation. I hope that they will be fighting for the sake of Egypt and the sake of the Egyptians, and not doing some personal fights like President Sisi mentioned in one of his latest statements, that the members of the Parliament should focus on the important issue and leave personal disputes and personal verbal fights aside. So I hope that they will concentrate on a couple of key sectors which are very vital for Egypt. For example, the tourism sector. Developing the tourism sector is extremely important. I was listening to the news on Radio Masr a couple of days ago that Prime Minister Sharif Ismail was analyzing an offer he received from an international tourism company. I think this is definitely something good, that a major international tourism company is planning to do new trips and new programs for Egypt. But nevertheless, we have tourism attaches in all the different embassies around, Egyptian embassies around the world. I think we need to have a very transparent program from those tourism attaches, each one, the one in Japan, for example, the one in China, the one in Germany, the one in France. We need to know what are their plans for the next 5 years in order to attract more tourists from these countries. The other sector which the members of parliament really need to focus on is, of course, the sector, the industrial sector, develop the industrial sector and make the environment more attractive for foreign investors, because I still believe that we lack a competition and an interesting environment for the foreign investors. Most of the local and Egyptian investors are really not very keen on attracting foreign investors, because actually this would increase the competition in Egypt. This would automatically reduce the profit margins they have. So they have a very reasonable interest in not attracting foreign investors from outside Egypt. So hopefully the members of the parliament will focus on this point a little bit. Of course, road safety is a very vital issue as well. We lose billions of Egyptian pounds every year due to the road fatalities we have on the roads.
We have a very high rate of road accidents.
One of the highest, one of the highest worldwide, unfortunately. Right. We waste so much time and so much fuel in the traffic jams we have on the Ring Road and on the Mahwar Street, on the Mahwar Road, for example, every day. It is unacceptable, neither for the Egyptians nor for any possible foreign investors, to spend 3 to 4 hours every day in the traffic jams. This is totally insane. It needs to change. Of course, the educational file is extremely important. Just read in...
if we put it in priorities, do you think it's the health education files or the security file? The security file, I think, should be on top of the priorities.
I think the security file is more... I think the government and the police and armed forces are more in charge of this file. And actually, they've been doing a pretty good job so far during the past 2 years. So I think in this file, in the security and safety file, we are on the right track. I think, of course, education is extremely important. I think it's one of the top priorities, because...
Of course, ratifying laws, I think, will be the first thing the parliament has to deal with.
Not only the matter of ratifying, but we need effective laws. We need effective and productive laws. For example, I just read an article yesterday in one of the German media sites that Germany is recruiting 8,500 more teachers to teach the Arab refugees who are mainly from Syria, to teach them the German language and get them prepared to be integrated into the community. So this shows you how much importance and priority the German government is giving for the educational side, because they want to make use out of all these 1 million refugees who entered during the last year. Right. So this shows you how important education is. And of course the environment sector is also extremely important. We need to breathe fresh air in order to be productive, and if we don't have fresh air in Egypt, the people will not be productive, the Egyptian people will not be productive, and you will not be able to attract foreign investors again. So we have those files which are extremely important, and hopefully the members of parliament will be really productive during the next year.
This. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we go to this report on the Grand Renaissance Dam and the meeting that took place between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan.
Ethiopia and Sudan signed an agreement on Tuesday finalizing the two consultancy firms tasked with carrying out studies on the potential impacts of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile River's flow. The three countries had initially picked French firm BRL and Dutch firm Delters in April, but Delters later withdrew, leading them to replace it with the French firm Artelia. The three-way talks, which brought together the foreign and water ministers from the three countries, concluded in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, earlier in the day. The meeting discussed new suggestions put forward by the Egyptian and Ethiopian delegations and to continue discussion over pending issues. It tackled Egypt's suggestion that the number of the dam's gates be increased to guarantee a stronger flow of waters reaching Sudan and Egypt. The leaders of the three countries signed a declaration of principles in Khartoum in March 2015 that paved the way for a joint approach to regional water supplies. The principles in the March agreement included giving priority to the downstream countries for electricity generated by the dam, a mechanism for resolving conflicts, and providing compensation for for damage. Signatories also pledged to protect the interests of the downstream countries when the dam's reservoir is filled.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to Egypt Independent, where we read the opening procedural session of Egypt's 568 seats House of Representatives will most likely be held on January 10, according to Legal Affairs Minister Magdi Al-Agati. The minister told Parliament reporters on Tuesday that the Assembly will convene after the end of Christmas and Coptic vacations. Elections of the chamber ended on December 2nd.
We already had this one.
Yeah, and we move on to the Al-Ahram newspaper, where we read the head of Egypt's Supreme Constitution and ex-interim President Adli Mansour said on Tuesday he will not join the parliament. Mansour said he made it clear that he prefers to maintain his position at the top of Egypt's highest court until the end of his term. Mansour, who served as interim president, was nominated by many of the newly elected members of parliament to be among the list of the 28 MPs the president is constitutionally mandated to name. How do you see this issue and ex-President Ali Mansour's nomination for this position?
I think the significance of him not planning to join the parliament lies in the fact that we just talked about it a couple of seconds ago. It's a very unique constellation of the parliament this time. So I think he's not ready to get into
trouble.
Not into trouble, but into debates with some members of the parliament who obviously are known as troublemakers. You know. So I think he wants to. He was the interim president of Egypt before, so I think he's not willing to get into such a headache right now. Maybe for the next parliament, I think he might consider something like this, but not for this parliament.
Right, and moving on to Al-Waqt newspaper, where we read Egypt's index closed Tuesday's session to 0.75% to 6,794 points, with daily stock turnover almost £500 million Egyptian pounds. Foreign investors were net buyers to the tune of 26 Egyptian million pounds, while Arabs were net sellers to the tune of 34 million Egyptian pounds. The small and medium index EGX 70 added 0.82%, while the more expanded EGX 100 was up to 0.92%. Of course, the Egyptian stock market or any stock market is usually ups and downs. And how do you see the performance of the Egyptian stock market?
Well, again, the numbers are quite modest. I think it has lots to do with the current holidays, the Christmas holidays, the Mawlid Nabi holiday, the upcoming New Year. So I think this is a very natural reaction to the timing of this year, and probably in January we'll see more encouraging numbers.
Right, and still with Al-Waqt, where we read the Egypt Central Bank kept the pound steady at 7.7301 pounds to the dollar at its official foreign currency auction on Tuesday, 5 days after it raised benchmark interest rates by 50 basis points. The rate was steady on the black market as well. Egypt, which depends on imported food and energy, is facing a dollar shortage and mounting devalue the pound. The central bank surprised markets when it strengthened the pound on November 11 by 20 piastres against the dollar. How do you comment on the central bank's policy in general and, of course, trying to keep the Egyptian pound steady?
Well, the governor of the Central Bank of Egypt, Mr. Tala Amir, is definitely facing a very tough time these days. As we all know, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received him on Tuesday.
I think he's having a different policy than the previous.
Yes, of course he's having, because actually he had to change because the challenges which the central bank and the private sector was facing was extremely tough, and this is why also, and it shows you that it's a very important issue also for President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, because actually President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received on Tuesday the governor of the central bank, Mr. Tariq Amil, because of course he noticed that the dollar issue and the so-called dollar is a very important issue for the private sector, and and this is one of the reasons why lots of the products sold in Egypt, their prices have increased significantly during the last couple of months. Of course, there's a normal increase which should have been acceptable, but unfortunately here in Egypt we also have a huge portion of price increases which is actually has no reason, and I think that lots of the traders and the importers of different goods, especially in the automotive sector, are using these crises to even enlarge their already extremely high profit margins, you know, and they're making use out of this crisis. So I think it's very important that not only the center, also the other regulatory authorities in Egypt should really tackle this issue and find a solution very soon for it.
Right, and wrapping up our press, we read in Egypt Independent, the Antiquities Ministry received 2 ancient Egyptian artifacts from the Foreign Ministry on Tuesday, retrieved from Germany and Austria. And very quickly, I think we're running out of time. We would like to comment on the Egyptian receiving back the Egyptian artifacts.
I think we have to admit that Germany is, especially Germany, is doing a very good role in retrieving and returning Egyptian antiquities back to Egypt. Back to Egypt, exactly. And I really would like to applaud Germany for that, and hopefully that we will be able to intensify the between Egypt and Germany even more, not only in this sector but also in other sectors like the sectors of education and the industrial sector, of course, and of course on the political side as well. I mean, the relations with Germany are perfect since decades, and I hope we can improve them even more in the next couple of years.
Right, Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today.
And dear ladies and gentlemen,